That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, where would you like to start today? You wrote here, Legault fearlessly bets big on Quebec. What's this bet on?
Well, the bet is on the future. The bet is once again with our money. You'd think that after the disasters of Northvolt, that after the disasters of Léon Electric and so on, that they would be a little cautious.
But
no, he's doubling down. It's François Legault, man. He's doubling down. He wants to throw more money at small and medium businesses in Quebec. He wants the Caisse de dépôt, yes, the people who oversee our pension fund, to take what he refers to as calculated risks on things, investments on like critical minerals and the manufacturing sector. Now, I don't know about you, buddy, but I've been, how can I put it, taking calculated risks for years. It's called gambling. And you know what? I always decided that I never bet money I can't afford to lose. I'm really not sure that François Legault and Quebec's taxpayers are in that position. He is clearly thrashing around, trying to get up from the bottom of the polls, trying to put a happy face, an optimistic face, a feisty face on this government. I'm not entirely sure he's going to pull it off. He actually, in fact, the basis of this huge economic announcement today is recycling a 2-year-old plan by Hydro-Quebec to expand its operations. Remember, back in the day, back in the Bourassa era, we had, Quebec was on the map for hydroelectric power. It was a marvel of engineering, blah, blah, blah. That was then, this is now. We're broke. There seems to be no thought for the after effects of some of these announcements, as in manufacturing. And I just heard you listening, talking to the immigration expert. I mean, if you've got no one to work in your factories, there's not much point in investing in manufacturing. But this is François Legault for you. On the one hand, I think he has this idea that there are all these imaginary Quebecers. How can I describe them? Quebecers named Tremblay. I'll leave it at that. Who are just itching to work at all these good-paying jobs, which he again referred to remember back in 2018, je vais faire des vrais jobs, des jobs payants. And he's got the same script now, Aaron. And this is what scares the hell out of me, because who knows, and I've said this before on any number of topics, who knows how much more damage he and his merry band of incompetence can do between now and the next election in October of next year. I mean, it really scares the hell out of me. And the fact is, yes, we are in economic trouble. We've got the madman south of the border, changing the rules of the game every other day. But the fact is, I think perhaps moving with a bit of caution, moving in reaction to events, this idea that we're going to strike our own path, that's really great, as a pep talk. If you're about to send, your hockey team out for the second period, you're down 2 goals. But right now we're talking about Quebec. We're talking about huge deficits. We're talking about people who in the day-to-day are not talking about billions of dollars, although indeed our premier lamented today that there's maybe not even 10 people who can sign a check for $1 billion in Quebec. Apparently we don't have enough rich people in Quebec. And that traditionally Quebecers are too conservative in their investments, which was one of the reasons why the Caisse de dépôt was created. But it just seems to me that this is a guy who is so completely out of ideas, so completely out of gas. He's just going to take one big swing at the piñata before everything comes down in a shambles around him. And I think the real question right now is, how diligent will the opposition be, Aaron, and just bringing this guy's blood pressure down a bit? Because quite frankly, it really sounds like François Legault has just basically come up with a plan to make himself and his entourage feel good. And meanwhile, the rest of us will be biting off our fingernails, wondering where our pension money went.
By the way, sticking with the premier, what'd you make of his call out to the doctors, all 13,000 of them who showed up at the Bell Center, when he said, you know what, maybe you'd be better off actually coming to negotiate instead of showing up to complain about the government? Maybe, Jim, we should be happy no one was arrested.
Well, yeah, I guess we should be, because that, to me, if we now, mind you, my understanding is the law doesn't go into effect until January 1st, because really, with the law of Bill 2, right, presumably he could have surrounded the Bell Center with Sûreté du Québec and arrested every single one of those doctors in there for having dared to voice their opposition to Bill 2. This is the other thing we have to remember. While, the economic genius is spouting off today, he's also, declared war on the province's doctors because, let's face it, Aaron, we have too much in the way of healthcare anyway. Let's take these guys down a few dozen pegs. Like I say, you've got to ask yourself, the real question is, how can we limit the damage, or can the damage that he could do to Quebec be limited between now and October? Because clearly his announcements today made no sense, no real sense for a province in its present situation, confronting economic uncertainty, confronting certainly the uncertainty with the U.S., and recycling 2-year-old plans from Hydro-Quebec, recycling slogans from the first campaign. I'm going to create good-paying jobs. Yeah. The guy, I'm not really sure, has got. How can I put it? How can I put this on the radio? It doesn't look like he's got his radio tuned to the right station, Aaron. You know what?
Wow.
He's got. Maybe there might be a little static. There might be a little static coming in there somewhere, and maybe someone should pull him aside, rearrange his antenna, and remind him he's the premier of Quebec. And that, honestly, the best he can do right now is make sure he doesn't blow everything up before he gets voted out of office.
All right. By the way, what do you make, since we're talking about, provincial politics, so out comes Paul St. Pierre Plamondon, who, what is it, a week ago said he wasn't ready to get the STM back. Now suddenly he's changed his mind, and he's going to support the CAQ's efforts to end the strike.
I have a very vivid imagination, Aaron, and sometimes I like to imagine these guys actually having meetings, and I like to think that Paul St. Pierre Plamondon actually got sat down with his entourage, not the caucus, the 5-member caucus now, but in fact, the nuts and bolts, the backroom people of the PQ who said, boss, okay, listen, we got it's going to be a long haul between now and the next election. And you got to learn to stop talking about separation 24/7. In fact, you got to start winning some hearts and minds. And this is a big fat softball for you. You come down, you turn around. This is the STM unions, rightly or wrongly, are being painted as villains. They're the people you love to hate. So you got to go on side. And I think that is what motivated more than anything else the announcement on Sunday that we will support the government should it decide to invoke, the law earlier than November 30th and be able to force these unions back to work. And I'm thinking, I as much as I loathe symbolic gestures, it's like, of all the things you could have done, the timing was so ridiculous anyway. And especially, listen, I think maybe down the road, given the flip-flop on the STM, how long is it going to be before the PQ turns around and says, maybe Bill 2 isn't that great an idea. Maybe we're going to change our minds on that too. But I really get the reading, Aaron, that somebody has pulled them aside and said, listen, ixnay on the operation, say, and let's put that in the back pocket for a few months there. Let's put you on the map for something other than these dangerous, speculations over, the future of an independent Quebec, because nobody wants to hear that. And maybe start talking like perhaps a premier in waiting who's going to be dealing with real issues that affect Quebecers in real time. Because anyway, that's the reading I got off of this announcement on Sunday, which seems to have not been telegraphed at all. And I was surprised to see it. So I really think you may be seeing a change here in the tone and the melody that's being played by the PQ at the moment.
But Jim, PSPP, ditching union support, that's been their strength right up until now.
Well, you raise a because you know what, and I'm in the same boat as you, because we kind of date ourselves by that. Yes, there was a time that the PQ was a social democratic party. You could say it was the party of René Lévesque. Here's the problem, okay? In this day and age, it is clearly the party of Pierre-Carl Pelledo. Yes, that guy, that billionaire, used to be head of the PQ. And back then, he was an inveterate union buster. But all that said, the idea is be pragmatic, and whenever you can, just promote sovereignty, and that's all there is to it. And I think this, as I say, Sunday's press conference was a step back from that. And I think that, there will be an attempt to try and change that. But I think most of Quebec, this generation of Quebec, is the latest generation, the voting generation, is looking at this and saying these guys were never social democrats. And quite frankly, if they want to change some hearts and minds on the island of Montreal, this would be a great way to do it. But, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. And quite frankly, I think in the meantime, with all this posturing from all these politicians, Aaron, I really get the impression that maybe the message is getting through to the unions, and maybe between now and, the end of the month, or certainly between now and the 15th, the deadline that was originally cited by Madam Martinez Ferrada, our mayor, you may see a règlement sooner rather than later. I think the word is out now that, you know what, I don't think we'll be able to pull this off for the whole month, and I think the drivers are getting the message too.
Jim, real quick before I let you go, story just a little earlier today, Projet Montréal, despite, they will not have control of city council, right? They lose the election. We've heard about recounts. This is new. They're now going to ask, Jim, for 4 recounts in races they lost. What'd you make of this?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the numbers. I saw the announcement this morning, and it's not like, Montreal East where it was a tie or it was a tight like one. There's a fair number of votes. Listen, they're allowed to do it. If they have the right to do it, they're going to do it. I really think this is more to deal with the shell shock of the defeat than anything else. It's not going to change anything, but unless it's going, maybe within the various boroughs, the various districts, people are saying, no, this is too close. You've got to do it. I think it's more just to soothe everybody. But I'd be very, very surprised if we're going to see. I don't think they're going to win all 4, frankly. But as I say, it's with the numbers and the fact they've got this entente. Ensemble Montréal has this entente cordiale with 2 of the independent municipal parties. It's not going to change anything in terms of the power division in city council. But it may be yet another example of Projet Montréal embarking on a symbolic gesture.
James Mennie, over at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio, hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll.
We're coming to get you.
One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all. Bryan Adams Radio. I'm coming back to you. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.
Everybody,